just when you thought maybe that situation in North Charleston was clear as to what happened with the police officer there in North Charleston shooting Walter Scott in the back, the Dashcam video has been released and Geraldo Rivera has weighed in. Oh, no. So now we know, and here's what Geraldo wants to point out, is that stop focusing all your attention on Officer Slager shooting Walter Scott in the back and start focusing your attention on what Geraldo calls a righteous traffic stop. Take a look.
Your license no chase insurance card? What's that? Okay, let's start with your license. Reason for the stop is your third brake light's out. All right, I'll be right back with you.
So, a couple of notes here. First of all, it was very hard to pick up. There was a moment, though, where the audio was cut. It's unclear who cut that audio. So, we don't know if the cop said something at that point, whether the
audio just went out on its own, or
maybe Walter Scott said something, but audio is missing from a portion of that could be relevant, right? So now a lot of people see this as we're going to get to Geraldo in a little bit, and they say, okay, he ran, so he had it coming. Mm-hmm. No, somebody running doesn't mean that you get to shoot him in the back.
No, you get to run after him.
Yeah,
which is what he did. He started. Everything started fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people thought they were going to see in the dash cam video. I heard people talking about it today at the gym, and they were like, well, yeah, he was running. Yeah, I know, but we saw him running in the first video.
Remember when we were in Miami together, Jenk and I, it's where we met, and we were working at a TV station there. And we were talking about police videos, and we'd refer back to the Rodney King video, which obviously had been 7 or 8 years. And there were, like, seriously, I thought, thoughtful reporters who were like, no, he ran away from the cops. Like, he drove away from the cops. Rodney King did not obey. Rodney King was drunk or high that night or whatever he was, and he did run away from the cops, and he deserved to get pulled over and arrested.
That's right.
Maybe vigorously, right? Yeah. But it's, why is it so complicated for people to be unable to draw a distinction between running after him and catching him and the inappropriateness of shooting him in the back? They're not even worth mentioning in the same sentence.
So now, I'm just going to give you a little bit more context before we show the reaction. Walter Scott, the shooting, in case you didn't see it, this is, of course, he runs away from the car, as you just saw, and this is what happens next.
Oh, shit.
So Slager had caught up with him at some point, obviously, between when he ran, and then they're together, and then he runs away from him again, and you see something on the ground, which now we all presume is a taser, right?
And Slager probably there's a part of his story, at least, is probably true, that there was some struggle with the taser.
Right, yeah. And again, people will be like, oh, they struggled with the taser. Yeah, Scott got tasered. Scott got tasered, and he ran away again. I mean, how much clearer does a video have to be? Okay, think about it from your own context. I don't know why people don't think about it. If I had a fight with someone, and they grabbed for some weapon that I had, taser, knife, whatever it might be, but they didn't have it, and they're running away from me, it's inconceivable that I would shoot them in the back and murder them. I don't know, isn't it inconceivable for you sitting at home?
Well, even the taser itself, right, is what they call less than lethal technology, right? So he didn't go for the officer's gun, right? He's struggling with him over the taser, which at worst could incapacitate. Let's say he gets the taser and turns it on the officer and can incapacitate him, right? The idea, for using deadly force, like the guidelines, the actual protocol is pretty clear, is there has to be an imminent threat to your own life. And I just believe that like that boundary in the entire culture of policing has really shifted.
I mean, look, if they're not, theoretically, if we're talking hypotheticals, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but if he's fighting for your taser and he might taser you, which could incapacitate you, which means he could take your gun, I could see you taking out your gun if but that's all irrelevant because he was 25 feet away and headed toward 35, 45, 55, 65 feet away. And I got news for you. I don't want to trivialize it or make light of it. Any moderately in shape police officer was catching up to that guy again. Like it's not.
No,
he caught up to him once. He's going to catch up to him again.
I talked about that when the video initially came out. The laziness of him not running after the guy, I think, goes towards the indifference towards life.
That's right, and also the indifference toward life, which is in the casual nature of his approach after he shot him.
Yeah,
he saunters.
So let's show if
you saw the taser drop, right?
Yeah, and so you'll see the cop pick up the taser and drop it by the dead body later, just for more context.
Fucking abuse.
So just very quickly, there's no question he throws something there, and to me that would explain why he's sauntering and not running to tend to see what happened to the guy he shot. Because when Scott goes down, he literally, it's like he's out for a stroll with his dog, and he's letting the dog sniff around in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I imagine now what he was doing was, what am I going to do here? How am I going to? There's another cop coming up. He sees another cop who was just there approaching, and he's trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? And what he decided to do was, I'll just take the taser and I'll just drop it. That's what I can't read into his head, but I find his approach to Scott peculiar because it was neither urgent nor was it safe. Like it wasn't like he was approaching like that there was some danger.
Yeah, my interpretation of that is that he wasn't trying to hide it from the other cops. The cops cover for each other all the time. It's inconceivable that cop was going to say, hey, why'd you pick up the taser and throw it next to the dead body? Nah. In fact, I think once they had a struggle over the taser, he thought, well, I can shoot this guy at will because we just had a struggle over a weapon.
I'm not going to impugn the other cop. Like, that's not true. Cops get on each other all the time. In the end, did they testify? Do they go to talk to the... No, you're wrong, man. Cops... in the end, they don't make the right decision. But was there some risk there? If it's a cop, maybe he knows him. Maybe they're best friends and he didn't know, but we don't know.
Now, Geraldo's going to come in and we're going to have much more disagreement with Geraldo than we do amongst each other. So let's go to tape here.
Well, I'm extremely glad that they released the Dashcam video because it gives context to the event. However horrific and tragic and outrageous the shooting in the back is, it shows that it started as a righteous traffic stop. There was a light out. There was a light out. The driver was acting very hinky, very edgy. He got out of the car, was told to get back in the car. Clearly, the officer involved was checking to see whether there were outstanding warrants. The victim knew there was the outstanding warrant for unpaid child support. He bolts. The officer runs after him. The taser comes out. There is a struggle. This part we don't see. You don't see, but there is a reliable eyewitness account that there is a struggle after the taser.
Yeah, well, very hinky, so obviously had to be executed from the back. What is he talking about?
When you start with a righteous traffic stop,
you're
already endowed with that.
Right.
You know?
No, and so it's a great point, Prakash.
No one in the planet suggested it was. No one's arguing. Walter Scott's family's not saying, I can't believe they pulled him over. That's not what their outrage is.
Yeah, he had not paid child custody, and that's why he ran, because he was afraid they were going to put him in jail. And back in 2008, he'd gone to jail for 6 months for child custody, not paying child custody. These are things that happen in life, right? They're not right, and that's why you go and you serve a warrant, etc. Now, in this case, it happened to be he wasn't serving a warrant. It was just a traffic stop. I've been in a lot of traffic stops, and I didn't get executed in them. Like they were righteous traffic stops. I was speeding, right? And so I think a lot of you have been in righteous traffic stops. You hope that even if there's a wild thing you didn't expect, you don't expect to run, right? But if something goes wrong, unexpected, you hope the cop doesn't shoot you in the back on a righteous traffic stop, even if you're acting hinky. So now if you're acting hinky, it's good enough to execute you as you're running away.
Yeah, I mean, again, none of it matters. That's the problem. And then as soon as you start bringing in, and it's a great point, the idea that it's a righteous traffic stop, you instantly start framing the whole argument completely differently.
That's right.
That you're dealing with a good guy and a bad guy, and that therefore everything that happened afterward is in the context of a good guy versus a bad guy. It is irrelevant. All the things that Walter Scott said about who owned the car, that's what that conversation was about. He was buying the car. I don't know. If I were a cop, I'd be like, this guy's a pain in the ass, right? No question.
Yeah,
no
of
question,
course.
right? It might make me look harder when I checked for the warrants, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference. You would have had to run and sweat and get your clothes dirty, and you would have had to tackle him and cuff him and bring him back to your car, and man, that's a huge pain in the ass, and that's what being a police officer is.